The waiting hall of the glass-paneled corporate tower shimmered with artificial light and the sharp scent of polished marble. 33 candidates sat upright in perfectly pressed suits, leather shoes gleaming, resumes tucked into sleek folders that looked as expensive as the perfumes they wore. Amidst them sat a young woman who looked as though she had stumbled into the wrong world. Her blazer was borrowed and slightly oversized, her hands fidgeting with the edges of a folder that was not leather-bound but fraying at the corners, and most noticeable of all, her shoes. The faded black flats, once sturdy, had betrayed her on the way there. The right one had split at the side, and though she tried to tuck her foot under her chair to hide it, the moment she walked across the hall to sign her name on the attendance sheet, the room noticed. First came the whispers, then the stifled giggles, then the bold smirks of those who thought their polished exterior guaranteed superiority. A candidate in expensive heels let out a soft laugh, another leaned to his friend with a muttered remark, and soon it felt like the entire hall was amused at her expense. And yet, the young woman, her name was Amara, lifted her chin, cheeks burning but spirit unbroken. She sat down again, staring at the resume she had typed late into the night on a borrowed laptop, willing herself not to cry. Her heart pounded with humiliation, but inside she repeated words she had carried with her since childhood. You are more than what you wear. You are more than what they see. You are what you fight for. Those words had been her late mother's, whispered on days when life seemed unbearably cruel. Now they were her shield, though it felt paper-thin against the storm of judgment swirling in the room. Before I take you further into this emotional journey, let me pause and ask you, dear viewers, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in looking beyond appearances, then please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Speaks. Your support allows us to keep telling stories that remind the world of humanity's true strength, compassion. The interview process began, and candidates were called in groups. The room was a parade of confidence, flawless smiles, expensive watches glinting under the lights, rehearsed pitches delivered with perfect timing. Amara's turn came last, and by then her anxiety had grown into a living creature inside her chest, clawing at her resolve. She knew she didn't belong, not in appearance, not in privilege, not in the easy arrogance others carried. She had no luxury handbag, no degree from a prestigious university. She had worked nights as a cashier to pay for her courses, studied during stolen hours between shifts, and cared for her younger brother since their mother's passing. Her resume was not decorated with internships abroad or shiny corporate training programs. It was a patchwork of perseverance, each line a scar of survival. When she entered the boardroom, it felt like stepping into another universe. A long oak table stretched before her, lined with senior managers in crisp suits, and at the far end sat the CEO himself. He was not what she expected. No sharp, cruel gaze or dismissive air, but calm eyes that seemed to observe rather than judge. He watched her walk in, watched her shoes most of all, though she did not know it. The panel fired questions like arrows, each one meant to test her knowledge, her composure, her skill. She stumbled at first, her voice shaking, but then something shifted. They asked about problem solving under pressure, and she thought of nights when she stretched $10 to feed her brother for a week. They asked about leadership, and she remembered teaching him to study by candlelight when the electricity was cut. They asked about resilience, and she thought of every job rejection she had endured while keeping hope alive. Her answers grew steady, not polished but raw, and as she spoke, her eyes carried the weight of truth no book or training could teach. The managers exchanged glances, some skeptical, some surprised, but the CEO leaned forward. He asked her one question: why do you want this job? Amara paused. Others had likely spoken of ambition, career growth, salaries, and prestige. She thought of her brother at home, his school fees unpaid, his dreams too fragile to risk breaking. She thought of her mother's words. With a deep breath, she said softly, because it is not just a job for me. It is a door, and if I can walk through it, I can pull someone else through too. Silence filled the room. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the CEO gave a small nod, one that none of the other candidates understood in that moment. When the results were announced, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. 33 candidates stood, some confident, some nervous, as the list of selected names was read aloud. One by one, polished shoes and perfect suits stepped forward to claim their success. And then, Amara Khan. The name hung in the air like a thunderclap. Gasps, murmurs, disbelief rippled through the hall. Heads turned toward her, eyes wide with shock, even annoyance. She stepped forward slowly, still half convinced she had misheard. But the CEO's gaze met hers with quiet certainty, and she knew it was real. She had been chosen, not despite her torn shoes, but perhaps because of them. Because they told a story no degree or luxury could ever capture, the story of endurance. The news traveled fast within the company. Whispers spread about, the girl with the torn shoes. Some mocked the CEO's decision, calling it charity. But when Amara began her work, the truth unfolded. She poured herself into every task with a determination that startled even her skeptics. She stayed late, not to impress but because she wanted to learn. She listened when others only spoke, and she solved problems with a creativity born of scarcity. She became a quiet force in the company, not loud or flashy, but unstoppable. And slowly, the laughter that once surrounded her name faded into respect. Months later, she was invited to speak at a company-wide event. Standing on the same marble floor where she had once been humiliated, she told her story, not as a tale of pity, but of persistence. She spoke of her mother's words, of the nights she almost gave up, of the torn shoes that had betrayed her but also revealed her. She said, "Do not measure someone's worth by the shine of their shoes or the cut of their suit. Sometimes the strongest fighters wear the deepest scars. And sometimes, the torn shoes carry the heaviest dreams." The room erupted in applause, but more than that, hearts were moved. The CEO, watching from the front row, smiled. He had seen something that day which no one else had, the strength hidden behind humiliation, the courage to keep standing when mocked, the rare authenticity that could not be bought. And he knew, without regret, that he had chosen not just an employee but a future leader. Dear viewers, if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that true worth lies not in appearance but in resilience, then I ask you from the depth of my heart, please like this video, share it with someone who might be struggling, comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. Your engagement keeps alive the stories that remind us all of humanity's beauty. And before we close, I have a special request, please. Comment below with one thing you believe defines a person's true worth. It could inspire someone who needs hope today.